Welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. My name is Andrew Murata, host of the show, and welcome to our live podcast. Proud member of the Education Podcast Network, Voice at Radio Canada, wherever you are taking in your podcasts. Excited to be with you today. And leave us a question, leave us a comment, and certainly leave us a positive review. Those help. We are going to meet Bobby Canosa-Carr today, coming to us from one of the most beautiful places in the United States, right outside Los Angeles, Huntington Beach area, San Pedro. He's on the coast. He's a California guy. He's also an author. He's a leadership coach, and he wrote this book. Check it out. Can I Go to the Bathroom? Very cool, very different. Bobby is bringing a different voice to education leadership and asking the very valuable questions. So before we meet Bobby, a quick word from IXL, the sponsor of today's show.
I'd like to thank IXL for sponsoring today's podcast. Over 1 million teachers use IXL in their classroom every day. IXL is the most widely used online learning and teaching platform K through 12. It empowers schools with complete curriculum, thousands of instructional resources, robust reporting, assessment data, and more. It saves teachers a lot of valuable time with ready-made plans aligned to the standards and the textbooks. Built-in engagement tools like custom competitions make learning fun for students. And IXL's diagnostic is research proven to be a strong predictor of performance on standardized assessments. And the best part? Everything I just mentioned is all integrated into one platform, so you can simplify your EdTech tools. Visit IXL.com to lead your students towards data-driven excellence today. The link is in the show notes, and again, appreciate IXL sponsoring today's podcast.
All right, thank you for that. Let's get started, friends. Bobby is an educational leader. I was checking him out, learning about his stuff, and the name of his consulting group, his leadership group, is called Enlighten. And look at that. Look at the word light in that. And I'm going to ask him about that. I'm going to ask him about his company. But liberation, interconnectedness, growth, holistic well-being, and transformation. Bobby, I love acronyms, and I love that. It's so good. Thinking about the work we're doing in education, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you, but I really love that. And the one I wanted to talk about here in the opening concept is interconnectedness. We as educators got to be connected, right? We have to be connected ourselves. We have to bring people together, mesh that web of services and people and emotions and all the things that go into that. So I was really impressed by that. This is Bobby's coaching thing. So take that acronym and bring it to your table, bring it to your work. Liberation, interconnectedness, growth, holistic well-being, and transformation. Well done, Bobby, there. So, again, I wanted just to give a shout out. Yesterday was Administrative Professionals Day, meaning the secretaries and clericals in our schools. I want to give them a shout out. And coming soon here is Principal Day. May 1st is National Principal Day. We're going to recognize our principals. Bobby was a principal, so I wanted to give those two groups a shout out. But enough of me chatting. Let's meet the star of the show today. Coming to us from California. Bobby, welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond.
Thanks for having me, Andrew. It's good to be here.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Get to meet educators from all over the country, and really was intrigued learning about you. And let's start with the opening concept. Enlighten. You are the CEO, the creator of Enlighten Leadership Coaching. Tell me about this journey, starting that and the work you're doing with Enlighten.
Yeah, I think the journey started when I myself was a high school principal. And I worked with a lot of folks who called themselves coaches. And what I realized over time was that term coaching gets really misused and abused in the education space because everybody wants to call themselves a coach. And so I had all these people trying to coach me. And in most of those relationships, something was missing. I wasn't getting what I needed to be at my best. And I found that for a lot of folks, coaching became code for either consulting telling you what to do, or supervising, essentially being your boss. And that set me on this journey of really trying to define what coaching meant to me, and what form of coaching I thought would add value for a lot of folks that were in that very, very tough role of being a school principal. And so eventually I shifted from being a principal to being a principal supervisor, tried different methodologies, tried to learn from a lot of people, went back to school to study, and ended up landing on this concept of coaching as someone who is there to help someone along their journey. As I like to phrase it, lighting the way on their leadership journey, providing insight, asking tough questions, pushing people's thinking, rather than coming in and saying, I've done this, I've gotten these results, do it like me, and you're going to be successful. Because what I found was our contexts in education are so diverse, so different. One person's experience can never actually be replicated in another person's context. And most of us who have been principals have stories about how successful we were when we were principals, and some of those stories aren't as true as we would like for them to be ultimately. And so I try to position myself as someone who leads the way on a journey of self-transformation, rather than telling you, here's how you do it. And that's what that acronym of LIGHT is all about, is that was my attempt to say, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to help you achieve all of these things, which if you go down the list, I don't think there's anyone who's sitting in a principal seat that doesn't want these things for themselves. And I don't think there's anyone in a principal seat who doesn't want these for every member of their staff and every student in their school.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I love it. It really jumps out at you. The image itself, Bobby, is really nice looking. So I picked that interconnectedness. Let me put you on the spot. Pick out one of the terms of light in enlightenment and tell me why that, and what made you pick that, and tell me about one concept you want to share.
I mean, I'll lean in on the interconnectedness also. I think that it's particularly relevant. You mentioned I'm an author. I recently published my first book, and the book is really all about interconnectedness. It goes through the experience of being in a school from 3 different vantage points, and every chapter explores the administrator experience, the teacher experience, and the student experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows the parallels and the interconnectedness between those experiences. And so the title of the book, of course, Can I Go to the Bathroom? And Other Asinine Questions We Ask in School. The point is, can I go to the bathroom isn't just a question students ask. In many ways, it's a question that points to the teacher experience and the administrator experience as well. Teachers are always asking for permission to do things that they know how to do. Just like a student knows how to decide when it's an appropriate time to go to the bathroom and when it's not. And if we support them with the right self-regulation, we support them with decision-making skills, we empower them, they're going to make good decisions most of the time about when to go to the bathroom. They don't need our permission. Same thing with teachers. We make teachers ask for permission for everything. You want to change your pacing plan? Ask me for permission. You want to use a different assessment? Ask me for permission. And then any of us that have been in that principal seat know that it's no different. Most people look at principals as the most powerful person on a school campus. In my experience, principal often feels just as disempowered as anyone else.
Mm-hmm. They're asking somebody.
Exactly. Whether it's the
Yeah.
superintendent, whether it's the state, whether it's the federal government, somebody is regulating what they're allowed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so the book is all about that idea of interconnectedness and how everybody in our schools is thinking they're in it alone. They're thinking they are somehow the victim of a power structure, and they're pointing fingers at other people and saying, you're doing this to me, when in reality, we're all having the same interconnected experience. There's so much overlap, and there's so much power in approaching the tough questions together, engaging in collaborative dialogue to try to solve problems in that collaborative space.
Yeah. Bobby, again, this is Bobby Canosa-Carr from California. Again, very intrigued by that area, Bobby. I'm a New Yorker. I'm way on the other side. You know, is it as busy and traffic as you hear about LA, or is it because you're tucked away? Like, out of Maine, LA there? Is it more calm that you're already at the water? Are you out of the traffic zone?
Where I live, I'm out of the traffic zone, but I go into the traffic zone 5 days a week. So
Okay,
my
your school is there.
my regular gig is right in the heart of downtown LA. And so
Wow.
to get the 20 miles to work, I'm sitting in about an hour of traffic each way. So I go
Whoa.
into the heart of it, but the beautiful thing about my life is at the end of the day, I get to come home, have a, you know, have that ride to decompress, to let things go, and created my own peaceful space in my own home. So feel good about it.
Bobby is the managing director of schools, Equitas Academy Charter Schools, LA, but he's also, again, the CEO of Enlightened Leadership Coaching. Bobby, I really enjoyed hearing you about the concept that you wanted to coach and how you wanted to do that. Tell me how you got started, though. There's a lot of people that want to do it. You actually did it. Tell me, how'd you get started?
Yeah, it started really with experimenting within my day job. So at the time that I really started doing coaching work, I was supervising principals, and I was finding that I wasn't having the impact that I wanted to.
Mm,
There were cases where I was realizing that traditional modality of I'm going to observe you work, I'm going to identify what I think you're doing right, what I think you're doing wrong, I'm going to give you the feedback, and I'm going to give you some action steps and tell you what to do. I'm thinking of one principal in particular that I was working with. Like, I was just having no impact on her effectiveness as a principal. And I had to take ownership of that and realize there's something I'm doing that is not working. And that pushed me to start diving into how people think and really exploring the human brain, exploring stress responses that are going on, um, how we process information, and realizing that most of the time that somebody is on paper qualified to do a job, but in reality not doing that job very well, it's not because they don't know how to do it. It's because there are some sorts of barriers that are usually internal, and that if they just had the opportunity to think through them in helpful ways, they'd be able to
mm,
overcome them. And
yeah.
so I started experimenting with different methodologies and eventually got fascinated with this, went back to school, enrolled in the Institute for Transformational Leadership at Georgetown University,
Yeah, I saw that. Wow.
where amazing program. I am not someone who enjoys being in school. I will say that is sort of ironic that I ended up spending my entire adult life in schools because I hated being in school as a student all the way through my undergrad. But Georgetown, I absolutely loved. Incredibly hands-on program where we learned how to have conversations that unlock some of those spaces in people's brains that they can't access with the right partnership. So love that program. Met some of my greatest mentors there, and that's when I really decided to go all the way with it and realized that my career needs to have these two different pathways. Before the show, we were talking a little bit about the fact that I can't seem to manage to get myself away from the grind. I'm still a principal at heart. I love being in schools. I love having that hands-on impact, but I also like having that coaching work where I can just be a pure coach to folks. I can just come without an attachment to the outcome, without feeling like I'm responsible for getting results, and just push people to think in different ways.
Yeah. You mentioned Georgetown. It's impressive to see that. Obviously, you were not commuting to Georgetown. You were remote in that program.
I
Okay.
lucked out. Usually that historically had been a program that was in person. It's such a prestigious program. People fly in from all over the world for that.
Wow.
I happened to have that moment in my life where I got interested in that program during the pandemic, and they had to go fully remote for the first time
Yeah.
in the history of the program. And so I had the opportunity to keep my job and be in LA every day while also studying a couple days a week with folks from all over the world.
Yeah. And you mentioned your coaches, Valerie Brown is one of your teachers, a mentor of yours. And I absolutely love this that you wrote there. She modeled for me a kind of unassuming wisdom and gave her the most powerful presence I've ever experienced in a person. And this is remote. And you said that most powerful presence. You know, I love that book by Amy Cuddy,
Mhm.
Presence. And so tell me, how does Valerie have an unassuming wisdom, but a powerful presence? How do you do that?
Man, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, for anyone that's listening that is not familiar with Valerie Brown's work, look her up. She's written several books. She's been on quite a few podcasts. So just a Google search will bring her up. But um, just one of the most influential people in my life, and really
Wow.
through meeting her remotely, having her as my teacher. She was actually the reason I was first drawn to that program at Georgetown. I heard her on a podcast just as a guest, had no idea who she was. And by the end of that podcast episode, I was like, I need this woman to be my teacher. I've got to find out where she is. I've got to find out what she's doing. And
Wow.
found out she was teaching at Georgetown, pulled up the website, and that led me to that. But she's a fascinating person who started out early in life as sort of a high-powered lawyer and lobbyist, ended up dropping out of that part of society and being ordained as a Zen Buddhist teacher, and now is in the leadership coaching space. But just a fascinating human being that I would say anyone that's had the opportunity to learn from her is never the same after that.
Wow. Those are some powerful words, Bobby. Yeah, cool. Well, let's talk about the coaching a little bit. You know, certainly intrigued. When you go into a school, Bobby, you know, you're a principal. You're seeing, oh my God, they got to fix this. Oh my God, this is terrible. What's going on? How do you work with those leaders without telling them they stink and not making them feel bad about their doing, but build them up and try to improve them? How do you do that in a way that they're enjoying this coaching experience versus, like you said, they feel like they're being supervised or they feel like they're being told what to do? How do you make that subtle change to coach versus tell?
So here's the secret that I figured out.
Well, here it
Nine
is.
times, 9 times out of 10, those people who are leading struggling schools don't need you to tell them that they're not very successful, don't need you to tell them that they're falling short, because they are beating themselves up internally more than you could ever beat them up from the outside.
Mm, mm,
That was certainly the case for me as a principal. And back in those days, I was a principal that a lot of people thought came across as being arrogant, egotistical, full of myself. I certainly bragged about my accomplishments. I had my fair share of them, but probably overhyped some of my accomplishments back in the day. And most people would have said, oh, yeah, Bobby as a principal, he thinks he's got it all figured out. But what they didn't know was on my way to work every single morning, I had a spot that I had to pull over to and often just cry and let those
wow.
emotions get out,
Wow.
because I had to kind of transform myself into this character that I needed to play to be a principal. I sometimes compared it almost, I'm a big superhero nerd. It's almost like that Incredible Hulk transformation where, Bruce Banner is the genius scientist who's sort of nerdy, but then when he goes into battle, he turns into this giant monster that is invulnerable. And I often felt that way, like I couldn't be a real human being,
Wow.
because it was tough. And I knew my school wasn't providing the experience that my kids deserved on every level. Just pull up to the building. The building wasn't even maintained to a level that the kids deserved. It wasn't a space that our kids, it didn't match what they deserved. Classroom instruction, we had some great teachers. We also had some classrooms where the instruction was not what our kids deserved. And yet I never told people that. I would have never admitted that. But I think that often is a side effect of the type of powerlessness that people in our education system, including principals, feel. I think
Mm,
teachers feel it. Principals complain all the time about, oh, these teachers don't want to learn. They're not coachable. I can't get them to change. Probably the same thing. They're probably putting on that hard, Incredible Hulk exterior because, in fact, they know they're not getting the results they need to. Kids, same exact thing. The toughest kids, the ones that seem to be listening the least, the ones that seem to be least willing to learn, the most disengaged. My money is on the theory that those are the kids who are internally feeling the least successful, feeling most vulnerable, feeling most beat up. And so to get back to your question about coaching, I find that I don't need to tell principals or other school leaders that they need to get better. They know they need to get better. What I need to do is break through the impression that they have to put on that hard exterior with me. I've got to create a safe space to where they themselves will tell me. And one of my favorite questions to start a coaching conversation with is, what's feeling hard for you lately? As soon as you ask that question, people will usually test you, see, are you serious? Do you really want to know the truth? And when you really give them space and you really let them know, yeah, I want to know what feels hard for you. I'm not here with an agenda. I'm not here to tell you what you need to be doing, what you're doing wrong. You know what's hard, what's not working for you now. What are you doing that's not getting the results that you wanted it to? And if the leader doesn't know internally the answer to those questions, then you got a different problem. But most school leaders, when you create that vulnerable space, they're going to tell you the truth. And next thing you know, they're coming to you for support. And that's the exact same thing that great teachers have been doing forever with those tough kids. Great teachers create that vulnerable space, and they create opportunities where it feels safe for the kids to come to them and admit, hey, I'm struggling to read this. I don't understand what the words on this page are saying. I can't do this. Can you help me? And that's when the learning happens. And I don't think there's much difference at all between the experience of that student with the tough exterior, the experience of the teacher with the tough exterior, or the experience of that principal with the tough exterior.
Yeah. Well said, Bobby. That is a great question. You make it sound easy, but what is difficult for you right now? That's really good. That's good stuff. Bobby, you're a busy guy coaching. You're in schools. You're in your own school. You have a family too. Shout out to your wife, your son Enzo, Mia, the German Shepherd, and Huey the Pointer. You got two dogs. So you're a busy guy. Talk to me about managing your time. I like having my balance bird here. You know, finding that balance with all the things you're doing. Give me some time ownership strategies here, some hacks that you got with all the things you got going on.
I mean, I'll bring it back to that I word we talked about already. Interconnectedness to me is it's about not compartmentalizing my life. You know, in the case of my book, I actually brought my son in and had my son co-write the book with me. And part of the reason we did that was because as I was writing this book, he was actually studying abroad in Costa Rica. And my son is one of my best friends. He is the other adventurous person in the family. So we both love rock climbing, kayaking, hiking, all these things. And so I was missing that connection with him while he was out of the country. And a part of what I was doing to keep myself busy was writing this book. And then I realized we can get on FaceTime and we can work on this together and go back and forth, even just asynchronously commenting on a Google Doc. So for me, like that father-son bonding time was also work time. I really just try to figure out how do I enjoy everything I'm doing, and how do I learn from everything that I'm doing, and put it all together. I know that doesn't seem to work for everybody. Some people are really big on, you got to have these professional boundaries, you got to turn it off. And my thing is, do what works for you. Those people who are like, yep, I need to shut down the computer at 5 o'clock. I need to be done. I'm not answering emails after that. Like, hey, if that's working, if you're feeling happy, if you're feeling fulfilled, if you're feeling good, then that's what you need to do. For me though, I find that I tend to not draw those lines. My principals that I work with, they call me, text me all the time. My family knows all about my principals. My principals know all about my family. And it's all, I'm only one person. I only have one life, and I try not to draw lines where I don't need to.
Yeah. That was a beautiful answer, and you're spot on. I've had some people talk about their sleep, right? Some people, like you said, I'm shutting it down, whereas other people said, Andrew, I want to scan my email to see if there's any emergencies, and if I don't see any emergencies in my email, now I can rest. And I'm like,
Yeah.
That's a great point,
Yeah.
So that's how they relax. So great point there. Bobby Canosa-Carr is a cool name, but Enzo Canosa-Carr and Mia, I mean, you and your wife, I mean, you got some cool names there, Bobby. I mean, really, really cool. Well, let's talk about the book, man. You mentioned it a couple of times. Here it is, friends. It's on Amazon. I got to start with the title. I mean, you would never think you'd see an education book with a toilet on it, and the subtitle here. But the title, Bobby, I mean, it grabs your attention. Let's start there. Talk to me about the title of the book.
Yeah, I mean, the original premise to me was about this feeling of powerlessness that we all experience in schools. And as I started writing about it, and the process really started with me just journaling and blogging and trying to get ideas down. At one point, I found myself writing about that phenomenon of kids asking for permission to use the bathroom. And I wrote a first draft of something that ended up making it into the final copy of the book, which is me imagining a scenario where a parent and a teenager are together out shopping in a store, and the teenager decides, I need to go to the bathroom. And I imagine the scenario where the student goes to the mom and says, Mom, got to go to the bathroom. Can I go to the bathroom? And then goes through all the things of, mom pulls the clipboard out of the purse and, okay, make sure you sign out. Have you checked that there's no one else in the bathroom right now? Okay, I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes. Be back in 5 minutes. And if not, here's what's going to happen to you. Oh, and by the way, here's some giant, inordinately large object that you need to take with you, just so that everybody knows, everybody who sees you as you're walking knows you're going to take a dump right now. And it's just so absurd when you imagine that playing out in a Target or a Walmart. And yet it is the most normal thing in the world at a school.
Yeah.
And so as I started envisioning this and jotting down this kind of fantasy in my head of this scenario, that's when I really locked into that idea of like that question, can I go to the bathroom, is really at the root of everything I wanted to talk about. And in the book, every chapter focuses on a different question. So we have all the questions that kids ask, like, what's my grade? And we get into how it's not just kids in school that are constantly wondering how they're being graded. Teachers are constantly worried about their evaluations, and principals are always looking at their state dashboard or school report card or whatever it is in your area. But we all show up every day feeling like we're going to be judged. And so that question, what's my grade, is another chapter. One of my favorite chapters in the book is called Why Is It Always My Fault? Which is something that any of us have worked in schools have heard kids ask many times. Why is it always my fault? Why am I always getting in trouble? And same phenomenon. I think most teachers and most administrators, if they haven't said those words out loud, have thought something along those lines. And so I just really realized that there are all these questions that kids ask that we sometimes make fun of kids for asking. But maybe in different words, and maybe in different ways, maybe in different contexts, everybody who spends their days at a school is asking those same questions. And they all come down to this simple idea that our schools are fundamentally disempowering for everybody. Very few people show up to a school feeling like I am in charge of my own experience. I am able to fully embody my authentic self. I'm able to live my true purpose here. We're all just there asking for permission to exist and to go about our daily lives from somebody else.
Yeah. Bobby, it's funny, again, the title, what you're saying, I have a terrible memory. But I remember freshman English, college. I mean, a freshman in college. And I raised my hand and said, can I use the restroom? And people laughed. And the professor said, Andrew, you're in college. Go ahead, And I stood up and I felt this like, you know what? I am in college and I can go to the bathroom. And it was one of the first times that I felt that empowerment. So I could
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. But the way you write, Bobby, is kind of sounds like the way you coach. You didn't say do this or do that in the book. You're asking the questions and then you give perspective, a student perspective, a teacher perspective, a principal perspective, where you're writing from different lenses. So the
Mhm.
book is very inviting. The book is very just inclusive, but it challenges you to think, why are we doing these things?
Yeah, I mean, my dream scenario is that people don't read this book alone by themselves. I would love to see, and I know of one case so far where this is already happening, where a team of teachers or a team of administrators or a team of district folks are coming together and doing a book club around this and having discussions about it. I like to say that the most important pages in the book are the blank ones, because I built in plenty of space for journaling and for responding to these questions, because I try to be very intentional, like you said, Andrew, about not telling people what the answers are or how to solve those problems. Because again, it's so different in every
Mhm.
context.
Mhm.
And there are more than enough so-called education experts out there that will sell you their opinion of what you should be doing. There are not nearly enough people out there that are willing to ask the tough questions and listen with authenticity and curiosity to the way people answer those questions.
Yeah. Bobby, a lot of people want to write a book. A lot of people got ideas. A lot of people say to other people, hey, man, you should write a book. Well, you did it. Here it is again, friends. You can go online. It's on Amazon. Can I go to the bathroom? Another asinine questions we ask in school. What was your process, Bobby? Were you 6 a.m. writing? Were you talking to text in the traffic on the way home? What was your process to actually write the book?
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything. Thankfully, I had all the time in the world to do it. I wasn't on a timeline. And for me, it was sort of a passion project. It wasn't something where I thought, I'm going to write this book because I've got some sort of contract to do it or I've got a deadline. Um, it was for me like largely just a self exploration. And as I started to talking people about it, people started telling me that's really interesting. I want to read that. And that's when I started taking it more seriously, but it was a little bit of everything. If I'm being totally honest, and this is going to make me sound probably way more privileged than I am, a lot of the book was written with the laptop propped up on the edge of the jacuzzi and me sitting in a jacuzzi just, but for me, like that's live in a community that has a shared swimming pool, shared jacuzzi. I love it. Tons of privilege. But to me, like the end of a tough day, like that's what I want to do is go out and just relax and rest. But like I said
Yeah.
before, I'm not good at drawing those lines and turning it off. Often at the end of the day, I want to process. I want to think through it. I want to reflect. And so it was just in those moments when I was trying to relax and trying to figure out all the experiences that I had had in a given day that I would sit down. But I jumped all over the book. Like you mentioned, we talked about before, had my son co-write some pieces of that with me because he was actually a college student as this is going on. And so that allowed me to really accurately tap into the perspective of a current day student, realizing that myself and my lived experience as a Gen Xer is very different than young people today in school. Um, but for me, it was kicking around ideas, having lots of conversations with my son, with my wife, who's also an educator, with my daughter, who's in school, um, with friends, and then just putting thoughts down to paper. It really didn't get hard until I had a bunch of content there, and I had to figure out how to shape it into something that
Mhm.
was going to be palatable to people who didn't know me. And that was sort of the trippy part, was when you realize like, oh, I'm actually putting this up online, and people who don't know who I am and have never had a conversation with me are now going to get access to my brain. But I tried to do the best I could to put it together in a format that would feel welcoming, feel inviting, and hopefully prompt some people to do some thinking that they might not do if they don't pick up the book.
And there it is, friends. Great stuff. Really makes you think, and certainly you laugh, you smile, but it makes you think about, oh man, I've done that, or I do that. Should I be doing that? And again, that reflective part, also very good. So well done, Bobby. Here it is, friends. The link is in the show notes. The link to Bobby's website is in the show notes as well. Bobby, something you wanted to talk about that I did not ask you?
Man, you asked some great questions. I really feel like we touched on it. I think the thing that I will keep on harping on and I keep trying to put this out into the education space is just pushing folks to step out of those power dynamics. When you hold power, try letting go of it, or at least holding on to it more lightly. Try asking more questions than you give answers, and that's kind of the gospel I'm preaching these days, and I hope it gets out there and more people really try just letting go of whatever power they're holding on to create space for the people doing the work to also do the thinking.
You said some great things here. I got a couple of nuggets. I love it. What's difficult for you right now? And I want to enjoy and learn in everything I do. What a great concept, Bobby. And I certainly learned hearing from you, so I appreciate that. But let's get rolling. I got rapid fire here, and we got tenure tonight here in Port Jervis, New York. Teachers are getting tenure. We got a huge cupcake cake. We got away from cutting the cake. Now we got little cupcakes put together, so with our logo. So I'm headed to our school board meeting and certainly proud of our teachers getting tenure. But Bobby, these are not sitting in traffic in Los Angeles questions. These are quick, quick answers. This is one of those waves coming in. All right, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. Last movie you saw?
Sinners.
Good. You recommend?
Highly recommend it. Like immediate classic. Before I was even out of the theater, it was on my top 10 all-time movies list. Go see it.
Whoa. I'm a movie guy, Bobby. I'm a movie guy. Okay. All right. Last concert you went to?
Earl Sweatshirt. He is a local underground rapper. My son and I sat out on a curb all day long to get into a pop-up show that he did.
Oh my God, he's got a cool name. Last song you sang out loud in the car?
Oh man. It was probably The Rocky Road to Dublin, which is an Irish folk song. It's on the soundtrack to that movie Sinners that I just talked about.
Oh.
So I was playing the soundtrack. Amazing soundtrack. I'm an Irish American guy. I lived in Ireland, actually studied abroad in Ireland when I was young. So still have a soft spot in my heart for Irish culture. And so it's kind of disturbing. It's actually the bad guys in the movie that sing that song. But I have to admit, I was singing at the top of my lungs in the car the other day.
Well, and where you live, you probably had the windows open too.
For sure.
That's beautiful. Bobby, you're a cool dude, man. You got a cool name. He's got a cool book. You're a cool dude. Your favorite dish?
Oh, man, that changes so much. But I got to say right now, the thing that I'm craving is French toast.
Ooh, I would not expect that. You're a thin dude.
I don't get it very often. I'm vegan, so
Okay.
It's very hard to find vegan French toast.
Yeah, because the eggs, right? You can't just have the eggs.
The
right?
eggs, and most of the good bread to make it with is like an egg bread anyway. So you got to find a real specialty place.
Okay.
My favorite breakfast spot has this amazing. If you're in the Long Beach, California area, shout out to the Wild Chive, best brunch spot in Southern California. But they got an amazing vegan French toast.
I'm looking at the map here now, man. I'm going to tell you, when I knock on your door, you're going to be like, yo, Murata. I'm like, Bobby, you're a cool dude, man.
Come on in. Let's get some vegan French toast.
San Pedro. We could go to the Cabillo Marine Aquarium. Oh, my God. San Pedro, baby. I love it. This is awesome. Well, tell me, San Pedro is fill in the blank.
Man, home. It's one of the most diverse, cool, quirky areas in LA. It definitely doesn't have your typical LA vibe. It's not pretentious. It's the port town of LA. So it's got a blue collar background to it. A lot of Italian immigrants and Croatian immigrants founded the community. I know you're a New Yorker, so I'm not going to talk about how good the pizza is out here because you'd laugh at me, but we got some bomb pizza here in San Pedro. And I know it's supposed to be said San Pedro, but in here we call it San Pedro. And if you're
Okay.
from here, you just call it Pedro.
Pedro. All right. So when I get out of the LA Central, I'm going to say, send me to Pedro. You got the battleship Iowa there as well?
We do, yeah.
Oh my God. It's Pedro. I love it. Well, who's your sports team? California sports team. The Dodgers won the World Series last year.
Okay, so my local people are going to kill me for this, but my sports team is the Boston Celtics.
Really? Wow. I didn't think that would be allowed. You're a California guy.
Yep, I was a Lakers fan as a kid, but you want me to share a real popular, unpopular LA opinion? Not a Kobe Bryant fan,
Mm,
and some of the things that happened with when Kobe and Shaq had the beef back in the day, and they
yeah.
traded away Shaq,
Yeah.
let go of the Lakers, and embraced my Irish American heritage and went with the Celtics.
Yeah. Well, and they won some championships. Paul Pierce. My son is a Tatum fan. The documentary on HBO, Bobby,
It's
Celtic
good.
City.
It's good.
Yeah, and you get to watch the games at 4:30 in the afternoon too. I'm suffering, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Nothing like those 4:30 Celtics. In 2025, I will fill in the blank.
Um, I will do more coaching. I think lately I have felt like my job has required me to lean more into the supervisor side of my role. And so I'm definitely feeling the urge to lean back in the coaching direction.
I like it. In 2025, I will stop.
Um, I think this is aspirational, but I will stop stressing out as much as I do. I think that's one thing that I am still working on, is that principal mind is still there, that tendency to just worry about everything, to think that there's always something going wrong, um, to imagine the worst case scenario, working on stopping that.
If you weren't in the field of education, what would you be in?
Be a screenwriter.
Hmm. Well, you did pretty good here, man. Very entertaining, very thought-provoking. There's this book at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. I am fill in the blank.
Running on the beach with my dog.
Only one.
Only one. My son is the primary on the pointer. The German Shepherd is mine. So yeah, usually her name is California, so it's usually me and Callie running on the beach on the
Ah,
weekend mornings.
a German Shepherd. They overheat on the beach, or you got a nice breeze there in the morning, or what?
Oh yeah, when you're on the beach, there's a nice breeze, get the
Yeah.
marine layer. So yeah.
Does a German Shepherd enjoy going in the water? Do they like frolic in the water?
Mine does, because I trained her from a puppy to do that. So she's real big on chasing things, plays fetch like crazy. So if you chuck a tennis ball out into the water, she'll swim as far as she needs to go to get it.
Wow. California on the beach in Pedro. I love it. Something about Bobby Canosa-Carr that people do not know about.
Man, I think the thing that people don't necessarily get about me is that it's not as easy as it looks. I get told a lot that I make certain things look easy, especially facilitating professional development. That's one of the things I love to do. I'm passionate about adult learning, as you probably picked up through our conversation. Um, the number one piece of feedback I get informally from people after I facilitate for a group is like, wow, you make that look easy.
Mm.
The amount of prep, the amount of work, the amount of planning and strategy and thinking that goes into all those things. And I would say the same thing for coaching. People sometimes think, oh, you just show up and you ask some questions. That's easy. But for every hour that I spend coaching someone, I'm spending several hours thinking through everything that person has ever said to me before and trying to figure out exactly the question that I need to ask to push them to think something they haven't thought before.
You asked the right question at the right time to the right person. He's doing that through enlightening coaching there. There's his logo. I love it. I love the mountains there, the color scheme, and certainly your message about coaching today, Bobby, was great. Bobby, how about a quote to bring us home here?
Oh man, my favorite quote of all time. I'm going to get the words wrong, but it's from Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Vietnamese Zen master. He said something to the effect of, "Every flower you see is a smile from the earth. You should smile back." To me, what that does is it gives me like a constant, what I call a mindfulness trigger. So that's another thing that I do is I'm a certified mindfulness teacher. I teach mindfulness courses sometimes. And for me, I like to set up triggers in my life so that I can go back to breathing on purpose, being aware of who I am, where I am, what's actually happening in this moment. And so because of that quote, I often use flowers for that. If I'm out walking or running with my dog and I just pass by a flower that's growing somewhere, I remember that that flower is the earth smiling at me. I'm thinking of it now because just passed by Earth Day. And so just remembering to smile back at the beauty around us.
This guy, most people say triggers are a bad thing. I mean, you're getting triggers for good things. Bobby, you are a cool dude. We need you, more of you in education. This is Bobby Canosa-Carr, friends. This was great, Bobby. I feel inspired. I'm going to go smile at some people. We're going to celebrate here in Port Jervis. So thank you for a few minutes today. Good luck with the book. Again, friends, it's in the show notes here. Check it out, Bobby Canosa-Carr. And one of the coolest titles I've ever heard. Can I go to the bathroom? And other asinine questions we ask in school. A lot of reflective thoughts and certainly time to reflect on your own practice. Bobby, if I could help you in any way, don't hesitate to reach out. And friends, check him out. His website's in the show notes. This was great. Bobby, thanks, man.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate your time.
All right, you stay on the line a second. And friends, you keep surviving and thriving. We're going to sign off here on Education, Leadership, and Beyond.